for today's session as well. So if it's okay with our panelists, I'd love for us to get started. We have a little bit to do in the beginning here. So I think it'll all work out. But thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Welcome to the Vermont Manchester Community Workshop focused on branding. This is the first of 3 branding workshops that are going to be happening between now and April, essentially, with the unveiling of the final kind of branding and themes happening in April. So, you know, as with similar to the community workshops we've been holding for different topics, the 2 main goals of these workshops are, 1, to inform stakeholders with balanced, easy to understand information, to share the purpose of the development, meet the development team, understand the timeline, and share project updates. And 2 is to really build understanding of concerns and aspirations of stakeholders to inform project decisions. So today is going to be our first workshop on branding. Let me just for a moment share the agenda. Give me 1 moment to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see? The screen I'm sharing?
It says you've started screen sharing, but I do only see a black screen.
Yeah, it's a black screen.
Hold on. Please hold. My screen is actually getting, okay, hold on, I'm gonna try this again because there's something going on here.
Is it the agenda? Do you want me to put my screen on?
Yeah, if you could, because I think Angela's frozen as well. She might need to log back in.
Yeah, you know,
okay,
wait, hold on, something happened. Okay, sorry, I think I'm just having some technical difficulties right now. I do apologize for that. Let me try again to share my screen without it freaking out on me. Okay, so it should just be the agenda, and I'm definitely sharing.
It's working.
But
okay,
this
cool.
is the
But I'm
facilitator's
also
agenda.
just sharing the wrong
Yeah.
agenda. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Just strange because I thought I was sharing the actual participants agenda. So let me just. Okay. So, let's see. Okay. Can folks see this agenda now? Is it the correct one? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, great. So, you know, I've shared the workshop goals. We're gonna, today we're really excited, as with every workshop, we're gonna take some time in the beginning just to share updates on the project. So Neelura is here to share a project update about the seed school. Alexis is gonna be sharing an update about the affordable housing component of the project. And Leandro is gonna be sharing an update on the commercial component of the project. I'm going to then turn it over to Prime Store to lead us through the branding goals and process. And so they're going to be facilitating the rest of the session and getting ideas, you know, about what the branding can be for this wonderful development. We'll use as much of that time just to engage in that discussion. There's plenty of time for that discussion, for Q&A, and then we'll take the last 5 minutes for any announcements and next steps. So before I turn it over to Neelura, we'd love to get a sense of who is in the room. And so I'm gonna launch 2 polls. You should see 2 polls come up, and these are just, and gives us an idea of who's in the room. So if everybody could take the poll and let us know, you know, who how do you identify, like, are you a resident? Are you a local business owner? Are you with a local nonprofit or an elected official's office? Our religious organization partners, public agencies, parents, students, teachers. We want to capture kind of who's participating throughout all of these different workshops. So you can select as many options as you would like for that first poll question. And then for the second poll question, we just kind of want to get a sense of like a little bit more about the demographics. And so age group, and if you would select the age group that you identify with, then that would be great. And so this helps us to understand kind of our reach and all the kind of diversity of the voices participating in these different workshops. So I will give folks, responses are still coming in, so I'll give folks 5 more seconds, and then I'm going to end the poll and I'll share what our responses look like. Okay, so, oh, I'm sorry, did someone want to share something? Was that just kind of noise? Okay. Okay. I think that
if you're not speaking, please mute yourself.
Okay, so we just asked that if you're not speaking, please mute yourself so we can reduce any background noise. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and we can see that residents, awesome. Most folks identify as residents on the call, and we do have a few business owners and local nonprofits, representatives from local officials' offices. So thank you guys for being here this evening and participating. And the largest age group that we have participating today is between the ages of 46 and 61. All right. Great. So thank you all for taking that quick poll. We appreciate you letting us know you're here. And we do anticipate we'll get to hear some of your voices as well throughout the workshop. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Neil Laura to share the first update about the school. Laura?
Thank you very much, Angela. And good evening, everyone. And most of you I've not seen or laid eyes on in 2021. So happy 2021. May it be much better than 2020. We've had some good start to some mixed results start. Let me put it that way. But I'm believing it's all going to get better, including us soon beginning to start construction on the school. And the update there is that we had all good on we had all good intentions. I'm on a call. We had all good intentions of closing mid-January and starting construction at the beginning of February. However, we had a challenge with the former owner of the site who challenged our street vacation that we had got approved by the city. And so that has caused a lot of concern from our capital partners, the people that are financing the construction of the site. They always get very concerned about whether some legal court action is going to stop the project. So we've had to take a deep breath, spend a lot of time with them and their legal counsel, kind of explaining that we really don't think that his actions are going to stop the construction of the project. But of course, we've had to spend some time, nurturing that information for them and giving them time to digest it. And so we think we have gotten back on track as of this Monday. We resumed our closing calls, and they presented a way that they wanted to roll out the financing of the project that would be comfortable for them and mitigate the risk, and some ways that we have to mitigate the risk. So we're on a clip now to try to close by the end of February, start construction in March. And so like I said, we have all the financing, we have all the lenders. It's just a matter of allaying their concerns about the legal action that the prior owner is taking with regards to the project. And then the second big news for us is that our actual job description, and I hope that most of you got it. I tried to send it to you directly. Our job description for the head of school has hit the streets, and we're moving really, really quickly with that. And we want to bring that person on by July of this year so that they have, you know, a whole year plus to kind of, you know, begin to start up the school, you know, bring on other staff, begin to establish the culture, do the outreach. And so those are the two big things, is moving forward with head of school and getting construction on the way. And I should say that the utility work that we started back in October is well underway, and we've had some slowdowns there. There have been some things underground that we didn't recognize or realize when we were planning. So we've had to do some additional work there as well, but it's going well, and we still expect to finish that work in March. And I will stop and see if there are any questions.
And folks, you're welcome to add your questions in the chat box directly. There's also a Q&A feature. There's also a Q&A button on your screen. If you toggle over kind of the main screen, you can see a Q&A. So we would love to receive any questions throughout the session. Our panelists will be are also encouraged to kind of respond directly to questions in the chat. And so at this, while we do the project updates, I think what we'll do is just receive questions on the chat and on the Q&A. And then once we get to the discussions around branding, we can open up all the lines so that we don't even have to do the chat. We'll just open everyone's lines. Does that sound okay? Okay, cool. Any questions for Nilura?
So since there aren't any questions on those first two parts, just wanted to also give people a heads up that we should be getting communication out within the next week from PDA, who is a jobs coordinator, and they plan to hold their first job fair on March 3rd. So that information should be coming out within the next week or so. We'll be circulating that information about that session, where they plan to have, it'll be virtual, but they plan to have breakout rooms with the different subcontractors that interested parties can visit and talk about the opportunities.
And Nilura, is that event on March 3rd, is that project specific, or is that integrated with other efforts?
No, it's project specific for our project, yes.
Sweet.
If there are no other questions for Nilura right now, I don't see any in the chat box, nor in the Q&A box. So I'll turn it over to Alexis, who's going to be sharing an update on the affordable housing component of the project.
Yeah, so since the last time we met, we found out that we received an additional, was $10 million in total in state funding for the project. $5 million goes specifically to housing, and there's additional $5 million that will go through the county for some infrastructure work around the site, which is very exciting. And sorry if you keep seeing me look on the side. We have tax credits and bonds that are due, applications that are due next Thursday, and I'm talking with a coworker in Teams at the same time to get those submitted. And there's been some back and forth with that, but and issues with the city and the state and all kinds of other fun things. But the most important part is that we're looking to submit our final funding portions for the senior and the family portion in the next week. And would have a committee meeting in April, and we would have, then basically we have 180 days from that April date to close. from the project, which is very exciting. The funding that we're applying for is now competitive. So if we aren't successful in this first round, we'll have another bite at the apple, as they say, in August. Yeah, that's the only update I have since then. Like nothing else has changed. We're just plugging along. Financing's in place, and yeah, it's going well.
Alexis, any questions for Alexis? Oh, I see Joy, you have your hand up. I'm gonna unmute you now. Go for it.
Thank you. Alexis, I was wondering if you could define more that you guys have found more funding for infrastructure around the project. If you could define around the project more.
Oh, immediately. So it's just additional funding to help pay for some of the, like Laura mentioned, some of the additional there are things that are underground that we didn't know were going to be there. So it's helping offset some of those increases for like water lines and things like that, like the new street.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joy, for a great question. Any other questions, or you can also raise your virtual hand and we'll unmute your line. Okay, great. Well, then in that case, I'll turn it over to Leandro for an update on the commercial component of the project.
Thank you very much, Angela. Thank you guys, everybody who are here tonight. We all know the sacrifice that you're making about taking time from your families and early dinners. So thanks for the commitment that you have to the community and this project. Speaking of commitment, I think that it's always important when we talk about this project that we reiterate a couple things that are absolutely critical to all of us. Which are the commitments that we as the developers on this project are absolutely putting our heart and souls into. And I just want to reiterate some of those commitments because I don't think that we should ever lose them or keep them very far from our hearts. We're committed to the local hire for this construction of the project, as well as the ongoing operation. We're committed to local hiring for our tenants. We're committed to healthy food options. We're committed to minority business enterprises having a strong participation and focus. We're committed to union participation. We're committed to business creation opportunities. We're committed to having ongoing plaza activation, marketing, and community events. We're absolutely committed to having a safe environment. We're committed to ongoing community outreach that's transparent and meaningful. And of course, we have already formed the Community Action Committee. We're committed to not having any fast food restaurants. We're committed to not doing any police substations. And overall, we're committed to honesty and doing the very best that we can as a developer team. Along with those commitments come some of our inspirations and dreams, which again, we never want to lose sight of. We demand that there be no fortress architecture or barriers that keep the community from enjoying this project and making this project their own. We're committed to no fences. We're committed to having a creative, inviting, and open access to the community, that the design inspiration be pedestrian friendly, that there be porous fluidity throughout the design, that there's a very high quality caliber of architecture and site amenities, and that it be sustainable, sustainably built, and transformative as a catalytic engine for this community. Reminding everybody about the schedule. This is obviously something that we all need to hold fast to. We began in the fourth quarter of 2018, where we had responded to the RFP from the county, and we had our preliminary non-binding agreement with the county. Our goal was to have a signed ground lease with the county in the fourth quarter of 2020. We have not yet achieved that goal. We are hoping to do that in this quarter, the first quarter of 2021. And so we're working very hard with our county partners on that. Our goal to break ground on the mixed use project is the third quarter of this year. So hopefully sometime in late summer or early fall. And we're anticipating effectively a 2-year construction build, putting project delivery at about the third quarter of 2023. A couple other just general updates beyond just the commitments and inspirations that we need to keep and be mindful of. We are deep within the process of understanding the design and coming up with the most holistic program related to that design that we can. Thank goodness our lease with Metro is now complete and has been approved by the Metro board, which is a incredible opportunity for all of us as a learning and training center and job opportunity center for the community. We're continuing to work on finding our anchor tenant, obviously our top priority. We've talked about some of the challenges on our previous calls. Those challenges, unfortunately, have not disappeared, but in no way has our commitment or passion for finding the best anchor that we can for this community lessened in any way. We are also beginning to get feedback and begin the process of doing some of the entrepreneurial shop leasing. And we're going to proceed with some of the letters of intent we're going to begin this process next week with hopefully a local coffee operator. We're going to be speaking with South LA Cafe and all of the other groups that we have started preliminary conversations with. Also, just on the community outreach front, as I like to say to the team, I think that one of the reasons why we don't have 100 people on this call like we used to when we first started is a bit of a testament to the fact that there's so much communication and so many opportunities to vocalize concerns, complaints, or questions about the process that a lot of people feel very comfortable with where we're headed. As always, we're an open door and an open call, and you all have my number and everyone's number. But I always take that as a good sign that we recognize a lot of these names. A lot of these people on this call have become friends and boosters of the community, and that is warming. At the same time, we expect you to hold our feet to the fire and demand that we deliver. But on that front, I do feel a lot of positive movement with making sure that there's meaningful community outreach. We've had a chance to meet a couple times with the community advisory committee, and it's been really, really solid. I'm really happy about that. We've also had a couple really great calls with Coco and finding unique opportunities for them to assist us in the project and help us out in our needs. And we've even had a meaningful start with trying to help neighborhood councils, even beyond those of this current project, just to start to build a more cohesive fabric within the larger community. This community, and we're going to talk a lot about it tonight, is in search of identity, in search of growth, in search of opportunity. And though we need to be respectful and put our hearts into this project, we have to admit that, a project of this magnitude creates ripples that need to be thought through mindfully as to how it affects other communities nearby and our neighbors. And I've been very impressed, if you don't mind me shouting you out, Ms. Enix, that you are driving your community to push for more opportunities for your neighborhood council and demand the type of economic improvements that you're seeing in neighborhood councils nearby and projects like this. We need to build coalitions and empower the entire Empowerment Congress. And we are a small part of that, but we are a loving part of that wants to help. So let us continue in that endeavor. Thank you very much, Angela. And of course, I'll be playing here Monday through Friday. I'm joking. Okay, just go ahead. Keep going. The band starts at 10.
For folks who were here earlier and got to hear the musical musings of DJ Leandro. Thank you so much, Leandro, for that update. Any questions for Leandro? Leandro, you've got a shout out.
Ms. Enix runs a great group of people, to be frank. Great group of people.
Excellent. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat box or in the Q&A box for Leandro. As always, if any questions kind of come up throughout the workshop, even if it might not be specific to what might be getting discussed at that moment, please feel free to share those questions. We're always making sure that questions are included in an FAQ and posted on the VMTPP website. So feel free to ask questions at any time. At this point, we're going to get into the meat of why we're here this evening, and that's to start this discussion around branding for the project. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Claudia to lead us in this process.
Thanks, Angela. Good evening, everyone. I'm Claudia Cardenas, and I am the Director of Community Outreach for Primester Development. And as Angela stated, tonight's focus for this workshop is branding. This is the first of a three-part series of branding workshops that the goal is to basically start the dialogue to come up with some potential naming options for the shopping center, as well as for a new street that's being created to connect 85th Street to Manchester Boulevard. And again, as Leandro mentioned, although tonight's focus is on our project, we do need to keep in mind that whatever name we land on for this particular project would potentially affect the larger community. So just to keep that kind of on your mind as we have the conversation about potential names. So the overview of the branding goals is that what we hope to accomplish is to have a name for this project, as well as a name for the street, as well as to design a logo for this project. Again, this is a three-part series. Tonight's focus will center around suggestions for naming the project. And that will be the project as a whole, including the school, the commercial component, and the housing. And then we'll also be going over some, getting some suggestions for naming the street, the new street, and we'll show you where that's going to be located. The second workshop is scheduled for February 24th. And at that workshop, we will give you a recap of whatever is discussed tonight. With some, suggestions of what potentially could be the name for the project based on the conversation that we have tonight. In addition, on February 24th, we will start talking a little bit more about some potential images or inspiration that could be used to design the logo for the project. And at the third and final workshop, which is scheduled for April 29th, we will have the unveiling of both, or actually of the three items, which would be the name of the project, the name for Street A, and the logo. And actually a disclaimer for the naming of Street A, what we are doing is we're going to be gathering your suggestions, and those will be presented to the city as options. The city will consider those options, and they may agree to use one of the suggestions that we provide. So hopefully we will have that confirmation when we do the unveiling on April 29th. And the reason why the unveiling is scheduled for April 29th is because there were members from the community that suggested that date, since it is the anniversary of the LA riots. So it would be sort of a remembrance of what happened 29 years ago, but kind of with a positive spin in that we're seeing some beautiful progress in the community with this new project. So with that, we're gonna start covering the first topic, the first goal, which is just getting some suggestions and starting the conversation. We're coming to the community because obviously no one knows better than the community what would be an appropriate or a name that would resonate with the larger community. You guys have all the insight and all the knowledge about, potential historical figures or some local hero or very active member of the community, someone that is inspirational, someone that, could be looked at as an example. It doesn't only have to be a person. It could be, just a number of things to kind of facilitate and get your mind kind of, jogging with some ideas. We did prepare just a 2-slide presentation that has some examples of some of our other projects. And I'm going to share that with you now. I'm frozen. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
We can hear you, Claudia.
Okay. Well, for whatever reason, I'm trying to click on share the screen and it's not popping up as an option.
I think this is like the golden hour of Zoom calls or something, because it's a lot of technical issues.
Just in case, Claudia, while you're doing that, you might want to email me and I'll see if it will work from mine.
Yeah, because right now, Claudia, it looks like her screen is frozen too.
Yeah, actually, I'm like clicking on different things and nothing's coming up.
Yeah.
That happened to
Like
me.
it's just thinking, the computer's thinking. So I do apologize for the technical difficulties. But just based on the information that we've covered so far, I don't know if anyone has any questions on what the goals are or what the process is intended to be, or if they're already kind of thinking about some potential.
Uh-oh.
Oh, she's frozen.
Sure.
Is there any detail we can give the people in the room about the scope of what we're attempting to name? I don't, Leandro or
Yeah.
I think that'd be helpful because we want to make sure, we're on the same page.
Yes. And also I do see that, Claudia, your screen is now being shared, so we can see that. And she's going to talk about the branding precedents. That's a hard word for me. But I think to answer Jarrett's comments, look, I think it's important that as we talk about branding and we talk about a logo and we talk about a name, that we understand that what we're trying to do is endeavor to create an identity for this project that has a meaningful impact, not just on the community, but showing the greater city of Los Angeles just how powerful this community can be. And to that end, we don't want this to just be a retail plaza or an affordable housing plaza or, forgive me, Laura, just a school. The concept here is really to create a campus, a brand, a feeling, so that as people look back and look at this project, it feels like many parts of a whole, and that it wasn't just hodgepodged together, but that it becomes cohesive. Because quite frankly, that is a result of what happened to LA and our communities as a result of the riots, was an incredible amount of fragmentation through trauma. And obviously that has historical reasoning and historical precedence, and obviously an incredible amount of, trauma. I hate to use that word again, but there are reasons why things are the way they are. And our job is to try to make them better. And one of the ways that we can make them better is by changing things the way we want them to be changed. If we can't dream it, it ain't going to happen. And so to a certain extent, these opportunities of renaming and branding are aspirational. They are chances to elevate the conversation, and most importantly, for something that the community can be proud of forever. That's, for me, Jarrett, the context, the why are we doing this? You know, why isn't it just going to be called Vermont Manchester Priority Transit Project? Hey, not very passionate. You know, that's not changing people's lives. The work may change people's lives, but it's a lost opportunity to create even more, to create, you know, a cohesive identity.
Well, I think, Leandro, you bring up a lot of really great points, and I appreciate the framing around the kind of purpose, you know, of really focusing in on the branding for this project. I think you know, the events of civil unrest that happened that caused, you know, this site to become vacant in the first place, you know, that's something that I think folks, especially living in the immediate neighborhood, are never going to forget, you
Totally.
know. And so I think I saw a little bit on the chat box that there, Brenda suggesting something along the lines of community of hope, you know, essentially like, you know, kind of rising from, you know, the civil unrest during that time, and really looking forward to something hopeful. So I just want to lift up her recommendation in the chat box before turning it back over to Claudia. I think Claudia, you were trying to kind of walk us through a couple of slides,
Right.
and then we can, and after that, will that be a good time for us to open up the lines for discussion? Is that going to be your cue for us? You'll tell us when to do that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I just have a
Great.
couple of slides to give you an example of previous projects. So this one here, this is our newest project that we just completed in the neighborhood of Watts at the corner of Alameda and Century. And the name of the shopping center is Freedom Plaza, and this is the shopping center logo. And the naming of the project, it was done through a series of community workshops, much like this one, except we were doing them in person at that time. And it was just a brainstorming session with people giving out suggestions on names for the shopping center. And through the workshops, we came to name the project Jordan Downs Plaza. So that was the original name of the project. The logo was the tree. And the reason for the tree is because there was an anecdote from community members about a tree, an actual tree that was somewhere within the Jordan Downs project. And it was called the Freedom Tree. And this is a location where the community would gather and they would talk about issues that they were having, or just, you know, where they would gather and either air their grievances or celebrate together. So it was a place of community. And so they really felt strongly about this tree, and that was the inspiration for the logo. The name of the shopping center was eventually changed because the shopping center is intended to be an inclusive, gathering place for all of the community. And the name Jordan Downs Plaza was limiting because some people felt, well, you know, that's not for me because it's Jordan Downs. So they felt excluded. And in order for it to be more inclusive of the community, the broader Watts community, through a second series of workshops with community members, there was a new name that was decided on, and that was Freedom Plaza. So this is how we came to this, the name and the logo for this project. And then the second example that we have is Azalea.
Claudia, if you can go back for a second to the previous slide for 1 second. I think it would be useful for our participants and audience to also understand a little bit. This was also an anecdote that was brought up to us during a live session with a woman that had been in the community for many, many years. And she had also brought up this concept of hope and peace. And so when we were working with the community and the artists two elements that were brought into it that I think could be useful here is the dove that sits at the top of the tree as an ongoing element that we could use on its own or as part of the logo, as we think about how this transcends to future projects and future messaging. The logo was then designed to have a multitude of options for spring and holiday season and autumn, and we changed the colors of the logo so that it also could be used seasonally. And then the word freedom that is embedded in the branches of the tree. So if you look at the way the design of the logo is, it spells the word freedom as something that was a discovery process by the community that we did not actually share with them. It was part of an exercise of discovery that they came to us and said, we figured out your trick. It's hidden in the words and in the branches, and it became an important connecting point for all of us. And we will continue to use elements of this. Further to that, it informed the architecture, because if you look at the logo and the form and shape of the leaves and the pattern in the leaves, we then translated that into the metal that was put into the buildings themselves with the same pattern, and that was then backlit illuminated, and so it connects everything. And the purpose of branding and design here is really to not only connect to the history and the memory and the values of the community, but also to lead in a forward thinking approach to how do we build from here with elements that continue to resonate with the residents that have been there and those that are coming in the future. So I thought those are elements that could be considered as you think about how intricate the process is of thinking about why things are the way they are.
Thank you for that, Arturo. I see a hand. I see Heidi's hand up. Is Claudia, can we take questions right now, or do you want to wait until?
Well, we just have one more slide, so if you don't mind waiting until we're done with the second slide, and then we can have get some questions.
Heidi will have the first comment. Okay, cool. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you. So this is the second slide for a project at the corner of Firestone and Atlantic and Southgate. The name of the shopping center is Azalea, and it was named after the official flower of the city of Southgate, which is where the project is located. And the logo was the winning design by, there was a contest that was put together for local high school students, and they actually were the ones that came up with the logo design. And again, this was all done through workshops with the community, who this, through a series of conversations, they evaluated different options for naming the shopping center, and they landed on the flower of the city of Southgate. And then the logo again was inspired or designed by local high school students.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I think the context here is another opportunity, which is we had, I think it was 3, if I remember correctly, schools locally. We connected with the principal. We then connected with the arts department's directors. Then the art program students gathered, and through a social media polling, ultimately the community ended up picking, designing, branding the entire project, and then we contributed first, second, and third place winners, art supplies and school supplies to the art programs of those schools. And we unveiled the logo and the branding on site, which was an interesting opportunity for the local youth to be on a construction site on a day, get to see exactly what it's like, and experience that, which is somewhat unique.
The one other comment, I don't know if you had said this earlier, Claudia, but what I've always enjoyed about the name Azalea or Azalia is that it's both the same word in English and Spanish. And so that feeling of inclusivity, or as we like to say, radical inclusivity, and not making any part of a community feel marginalized, for me was very, very beautiful.
Thank you, Leandro and Arturo, and we can start taking some questions.
Okay.
Hi.
Well, I think
Go ahead,
Heidi had a
Heidi.
question.
Yes, I just
Hi, I'm
unmuted.
unmuted. Hi, everyone. Hi, thank you so much for hosting this. I hope everybody's having a great evening and that everybody's keeping safe at home. I just wanted to add, I just wanted to say several things. I think that the history of South LA goes further than the uprisings in the 60s or even the ones that happened in the 90s. I think that for many of people, well, I don't know about the developers, but I know that, and this is something that not a lot of people know. Well, some people know, but not a lot of people know that the Vermont corridor was thriving in the 20s and the 30s. And so there needs to be kind of like an acknowledgement of that this was a thriving corridor back then. And that there were businesses, there were restaurants, there were shops. All of this used to be there before white flight and disinvestment in our community. So I also want to point out that I'm a little bit concerned because what I'm hearing, I think the gentleman, his name is Arturo, say is that he wants to keep in line with I mean, I feel like every part of LA has a different sense of like what the neighborhood is. And so I feel like it wouldn't be fair to us to kind of align with what was done at the Freedom Plaza to have the kind of same design features there. And I understand that maybe that's something that Primestar wants to do so that their branding across the board is well known in the community. But I think that as a predominantly Black and Brown community, we need to like highlight that we're, and I understand maybe in Southgate it's predominantly Latino, and maybe that's why the wording like Azalea, it makes sense there. But I think here we need to pay respect to the fact that we are Black and Brown, and that needs to be represented in the branding, and we deserve our own type of branding. And it doesn't need to Watts, it's its own community, and it's a great community as well, but our voice is different and our identity is different in Vermont and Manchester. That's it.
Well said,
Yeah,
Heidi.
I think those are great comments. This is Arturo. I think what we were showing as examples of what was done in other projects only by process, and what was done there for the purpose of highlighting that it was the community itself that started from zero to define the look, feel, and use of the branding and the imagery. And that is exactly the process that we envision here. This is the process where this community will come up with a name, this community will come up with branding. We don't have any continuity center to center. Every logo stands on its own. Every project is its own identity. And there really isn't anything that we as a development and operating company carry forward. In fact, we're very much against that. I think it's precisely the goal of the presentation, the exercise over the next several weeks, to define by its own voice what is the image, the logo, the coloring, the voice that it wants to have on its own for this project itself. So not only do we strongly agree with your perspective, but we're perfectly aligned with that intent. And we are simply facilitators for the voice of the community to figure out a way to translate what you direct us to do, not to direct the process, just facilitate the process.
Very, very well said, Heidi. And thank you, Arturo. And I have to agree with you very much, Heidi, that this community goes so much deeper than just the civil unrest, so much deeper. And not me, but many other people grew up shopping at Zodi's and all of the stores that were up and down Vermont that are no longer there. And that almost like phantom limb of knowing that it was there and that it is no longer there is painful.
I think Miss Enix also has, I see a hand up for Miss Enix. So I think, did I unmute you?
You did. Thank you, Angela.
Okay, great. Absolutely.
So, Leandro kind of alluded to the fact that we're having conversations amongst the neighborhoods within our neighborhood council about really defining who we are and what we want to be. And in a community that has the benefit of having Crenshaw Christian Center, that is, very well known, and Community Coalition, it's also known for being where Murder Alley is. And so to name this something that does not uplift Vermont Knolls just being Vermont Knolls, I find very interesting. We just want to be just like every other community. Hollywood, folks don't try to change their name. Brentwood doesn't either. We need to be proud of Vermont Knolls. And as Metro puts a major transportation, bus line going from Hollywood all the way to the 105, why wouldn't we want people to be proud and let them know that they're passing through Vermont Knolls? So I just want you guys to take that in consideration. No disrespect intended, but I find Freedom Plaza corny. And Heidi, I'm old enough to remember when Vermont was a burgeoning, retail street. I'm older, I'm not gonna tell you how old I am, but I remember that. And so we're proud that, those of us that live in that area. Some of us are next door at Manchester Square and Gramercy Park, and we want to be proud of that. So I would suggest that Vermont Knolls, that name be in there somewhere, whether it's Vermont Knolls Plaza, Renaissance, a knoll is a mountain, or the ringing of a bell. I mean, to look at the history of it and let people know you are visiting, and you are passing through Vermont Knolls. Thank you.
Ms. Enix, can I ask a question as not a resident of the community? I always saw Vermont Knolls as on the edge of the community, more up and to the left. Do you feel that this project rests within Vermont Knolls?
The Vermont Knolls folks do. And
and can I add also Vermont Vista as well?
Well, whether it's Vermont Vista, Vermont Knolls, I'm just saying it should be wherever it exists, whatever neighborhood it exists in. I think it's important to have something positive associated with that community. To not do that is to ignore it, or to just say it's not worthy. And that's just my perspective. So, like I said, as we're determining who we are an area with other community, an area of various neighborhoods that are proud of our neighborhoods and just want to make it better like every other neighborhood.
Well, and certainly the word Vermont, in my opinion, for me, has always connoted a real, like, primary, important, great street of LA, right? It's a huge thoroughfare that is known, right? That has an identity. Growing up in LA, I knew Vermont. It was the one to the right of Western. But it has a deep and rich history of that. So I respect that about keeping some concept of the name Vermont too.
Thank you.
And as we've stated, this will come from you and the rest of the community through this process.
Can I speak?
Go for it.
Go for it,
Okay.
Brenda.
So,
Go for it, Brenda, and then Cadmiel I think Cadmiel had the next hand, and then, but everybody's lines you're able to talk now.
okay.
Yeah.
So just to kind of chime in, I'm a product of South LA and Vermont also. And I also was employed by the city, part of the Empowerment Congress when they first got started in under Mark Ridley Thomas. And I too remember going shopping on Vermont. That was the big thing for us. And while we didn't live in the Vermont Knolls area, we lived off of 95th and Normandy, but we still went shopping on Vermont because that was the mecca of where we went. We didn't go downtown or anywhere. And I remember at the time when the stores were starting to leave, where we had Federated, Newberry's, and Thrifties and all of that. And when the civil unrest happened and we lost those few businesses, then came the arduous work of trying to rebuild on that Vermont corridor. And so for me, I always thought of all the work that we did with what's in a name in terms of naming communities under the Empowerment Congress and all of that. I tend to see it as something like a community of hope or something of that nature when we talk about community, because it's more than just Vermont Knolls that will be engaging that development. It is for the community in that South Los Angeles area. And we were considered Southwest, but on the other side of Vermont, you have the Southeast. And so I would think that we would want to do something that didn't necessarily put a particular name of a street on it or an area, as opposed to a phrase, so that it encompassed everybody, because you're going to have people coming to that location from all over the place in South LA, especially the Southwest area and the Southeast. So for me, I would want something that is broader in its description, but definitely something of hope, because we all saw the devastation. I remember driving and taking pictures after the civil unrest of the burning buildings and everything, and thinking to myself, when we do rebuild, we have to build better. And so that's where my idea around hope, doesn't have to be community of hope, but something about hope or along those lines, is because there was a lot of work that went into this. This is kind of the final results of it. But I remember when we met with Majestic Realty, when Mark Ridley Thomas was the councilman, and we were meeting, trying to figure out what to do about that whole corridor and stuff. So there's a lot of history, but I think hope to me would be a good step in the right direction.
Thank you, Brenda. And just as a reminder, we're not picking a name tonight. We're marinating. We're getting ideas. We're letting everything flow.
Right.
So as I say, there's no bad ideas.
Cadmiel, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I would just add kind of in that same respect that, because Vermont Manchester really sits at, really, it's a major intersection for all of South Central, but especially for communities in the Southeast that have a lot less like access to retail, and quality, spaces. But further, any one community that sits just adjacent to Vermont Manchester would only be a slice of not only
Cadmiel,
who
you're losing your cat,
community, but who will also be patronizing them. Okay, maybe I'm just getting a bad connection. I'm sorry. My Wi-Fi and everything is. Am I back coming through smooth?
We can hear you now.
It's better now.
Okay, sorry for the bad connection.
All good.
So I was just saying that because it sits at such a pivotal point in all of South Central, to kind of coin it around any one neighborhood only recognizes or acknowledges a slice, as well as like Heidi said, really looking at just the uprising only recognizes a slice of the history as well. And to kind of consider the hope aspect that the person who just spoke previously mentioned, and also the azalea piece, I think it should be broad enough to be inclusive, you know, for the community at large to identify, but something that does still like bring forward the richness of the history and the existing neighborhoods that kind of like nestle Vermont, Manchester. So, you know, that doesn't have to come across in just the name or the logo, but you know, I think it should be, you know, try to acknowledge more than just a slice, to say the least.
Did you have any thoughts, man, about names?
I mean, I would say and just add that because, like Leandro was saying, a lot of the history, you know, prior to the uprising is kind of like that phantom limb, but the island that sits, you know, it used to be a railway down Vermont, you know, before they put the island in the trees. You know, we're talking about, you know, the vibrant retail that was there. So I think something that really like points back to that in a way that, because it's so lost and unrecognized, it still points forward to where not only what we want to go back to, but really even further. So, you know, not to mention where it's going to sit relative to, you know, all of the other transits that's going to come through. So things that are coming to my mind now that could signify hope are just things like horizon or beacon. You know, maybe it could intertwine, you know, the, you know, Vermont, Manchester of some sort, but, you know, just a name that really signifies, that really has like some iconic weight to it. You know, not that the existing history doesn't, but to really elevate it, what can we put it on? And I think, you know, so nothing really comes to my mind exactly, but just in my thinking in this short you know, my short thinking now, things like beacon, horizon, you know, kind of, especially because how Vermont stretches, right, from Los Feliz to you know,
Long
San
Beach.
Pedro to Long Beach, right? Like
Yeah.
Vermont is one of the furthest stretching streets in all of Los Angeles.
It is. And as I'm hearing you talk, it's a transit hub, but it's also a community.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
there
Because
must be
you
some
can,
sort of language that can be come together to absorb that.
right. And also just lastly, something that looks in both directions, right? In both metaphorically and literally, because you can stand at Vermont, Manchester and see Hollywood, but you can also see the horizon in the south as well. But we also want to be looking at the past, but also be looking at the future, right? And so just something that can absorb the weight of you know, the history, but also just the possibilities that lie ahead.
Awesome.
Let me add just real quickly, because I think these are all amazing foundations to the process. There's also the possibility for the group to consider throughout the next several weeks in the branding and naming ideas, that there's the possibility of creating a word that doesn't exist, that is a name, and that it captures, right? Something that is the way that a word is created by the letters or the membership of the community. Because I do think, as Cadmiel just mentioned, something very important, which is you do have this major street that's going through such long distances, but it is at the heart a community in and of itself. that requires and needs its own identity from where to flourish and to reflourish in the way that the residents want to see it. And I think that there's a possibility for even creating a word in itself in a combination of components. So it's out. We can be very broad and very creative in how we put something like this together. And also with a name comes, of course, then the image, right? Which is a totally different process. The way that Nike come up with a swoosh, and you know that it is Nike. And so eventually we'll be working through those exercises as well with everyone that participates to create that combination that when you combine words and image, eventually you hopefully are hitting on all the key elements that you want to see.
And Arturo, there's a in the chat box, Tony and Amy L have recommended VM Hope Plaza as another option for consideration.
Yeah, I saw it. It had it as VW Hope Plaza.
I think maybe they meant M, but yeah, unless it is VW, Tony, Amy.
Maybe it's get a sponsorship from Volkswagen. No, but kidding aside, I do think that is where Tony and Amy are coming from, is also creating something as a combination of letters and words. So everything is, as Leandro mentioned, this is just gathering of ideas and thoughts to really go at the very basis. There was a project that we were involved with in a community where the word they came up with was Amara, Amara. And for that community, for that effort, the word itself, it didn't mean anything in itself. It sounded and resonated as something that encompassed what that was. And so it could be, an idea, just throwing out concepts and ideas.
I'd like to ask the team a question, which is the connotation of the word South Los Angeles. In my mind, as a community-centric developer, I look at South LA as a word of pride, right? I look at it as an example of opportunity of what can be, and to some degree, like the dream of self-representation, that South LA is the future of LA. But I don't live in the neighborhood. Community members that, I'd like to ask you, what do you feel about concepts like South LA Commons, South LA Vermont Plaza, South LA? What is that wording? Does it have any value?
Not at all. No, I've
right.
never ever said I'm from South LA unless I was probably in a place where people are calling it South LA. But otherwise, we live in South Central.
Can I say something also? I want to add that
the city went through a rebranding process. I don't know where it came from, top down, and once it got coined South LA, now it's on the cutting edge of being solar. So it depends on how much traction that gets, and solar has a Soho feel, other communities that have went, WeHo, right?
I would
NoHo.
Yeah,
no,
I was actually part of the rebranding of the South LA back in the day under Mark Ridley Thomas. Mm-hmm. And the concept or the idea behind it was that it was during the time right on the heels of the civil unrest where there was a lot of negative connotation with South Central. Anything negative, they called it South Central, and South Central, no one could tell you where South Central began and where South Central ended when it was negative. When it was something good, then they started talking over about the USC area. So under the Empowerment Congress group, we started meeting, and that's how we started saying, well, how do we change the perception of people always wanting to associate South Central being negative? And so we started talking about South Los Angeles, because there is a central, and there is a central that is South Central, but that does not necessarily define all of South LA. And so as a result of that, then came the renaming of maps, the city maps. When you go to the city engineer and you wanted maps, they would give you maps and the maps would say South LA. It was trying to educate the media to stop saying that South Central was always negative. Anything negative became South Central. So then there was this whole campaign around doing South LA to try to remove some of that stigmatism, that negative stigmatism attached to it. So people will say South Central now, it's fine. People will say South LA. It just depends on where you are and how you feel about it. But for a while there, everything negative was South Central.
Hello, can I say something? As someone who grew up, I grew up in the East Side, in East Los Angeles, but even though the name was changed from South Central to South LA, that it's like you couldn't escape the negativity with either name. Like for me, like as someone that grew up on the other side of town and now lives here, there's just negativity attached to either South Central or South LA. And I feel that like as time has gone by, I feel that there is more pride in the name of South Central, like reclaiming that name and saying like, we are who we are and this is who we are.
Yeah, the whole goal was to try to educate the media. It wasn't so much the community. The community, we had our pride, but the media was the one, and it was being portrayed on TV. And so naturally, people who watch TV were creating these assumptions about us and knew nothing about us. They had never been there to visit or anything. And a lot of times they would come and they were like, oh, so this is South Central? Oh, I was expecting, something bad. And we were like, no. But that's what the media had portrayed. So the whole campaign was trying to re-educate the media. It wasn't so much the community.
I think what's interesting of what I'm hearing is that whether there's a South LA or a South Central, it's going to bring up some feelings.
Yeah.
It's not neutral.
Yeah. Agree.
And that's because, Leandro, that it was sort of a dog whisper.
Yeah.
It was a whisper.
Yeah.
Tell certain groups of people to avoid these communities, whether it be passing through or investing. And so.
Yes.
I see Ms. Enix has had her hand up for a while. I don't know if that is a new hand or if it's a.
Yeah, it's a new hand.
Okay, go for it.
One, I did verify it is located in Vermont Knolls. I pulled up the map.
All right.
Two, I just wanted to submit that when we all went to the Crenshaw Baldwin Hills Plaza, it didn't stop us from going there because it was named the Crenshaw Baldwin Hills Plaza, or to Lamert Park, I just wanted to submit that. But I also wanted to ask if I wanted to ask the community through our social media if they can come up with other names, who I should send them to.
Claudia?
Well, actually, I can provide my contact information. My email address is C Cardenas, which is CCARDENAS @primestore.com, and we'll put it in the chat so it'll be easier for you guys to get it. But also, we are in the process of setting up a Instagram account, so we'll be able to connect with more of the community that way. But for the time being, you can go ahead and refer them to me, please.
Well, I wasn't going to refer them because I don't want you to get bombarded. I'll have them posted on our social media, and then I'll send you what they come up with.
Okay,
That's sweet of you. Also, the website that we have for the project is going to act as a repository of all of these meetings and inputs and feedback, and we don't want any of this lost. Everyone's voice matters.
Thank you.
So these are all some great ideas and something that we can already, start, discussing and evaluating and, generating additional ideas. As Leandro mentioned, this is, something to just kind of start marinating on. And again, with additional input from the broader community, we can start to look for some options that we can come back and discuss at the second workshop scheduled for February 24th. So unless someone has additional ideas for the naming of the project, we can move on to the next item, which would be the naming of Street A. And for that, I'm going to share where the street is going to be located. So as had been discussed before, 85th Street is going to end at the project. And a new street is going to be created to connect 85th Street to Manchester Avenue. So that's this little street right here. And we have the option of submitting some suggestions for naming this street. We did already get some input from the Community Action Committee. However, we would like to get additional input from the broader community. And then also just to kind of put it in perspective, there were some great suggestions that were provided by the CAC. However, this is a tiny street that is half a block long. So with that in mind, maybe it could be something that it could be connected with the naming of the project rather than with the naming of a national civil rights activist who deserves so much more than half a block. And by that, I'm referring to John Lewis, who was basically the top choice when we first did this exercise. But it is, the opinion of many that it just, the street does not provide, what John Lewis would deserve to have a street name after him. So with that in mind, if we want to start kind of throwing some ideas as to what would be some options for the naming of the street.
I think if we look at people who grew up in the community that is known, who has transitioned or something, we could probably identify someone from the community that made a difference that you don't normally hear about. But
We love that.
It's a great idea to educate people.
We completely love that. We had this huge debate because I'm going to be as blunt as I can. I had voted for John Lewis, and then when somebody had said, he's too important, I felt so ashamed. I was like, oh my God, you're right. Like, how could I do that? What a terrible thing to do. We should call the city of Los Angeles like John Lewis City, or change the state's name from California to John Lewis, California.
I grew up going to Crenshaw Christian Center, and Frederick Casey Price was an institution in and of itself.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what people think about that kind of name.
Can I ask what is being done to honor then, former supervisor, now council member Ridley Thomas? This wouldn't have happened without him. So
right.
I'm down for Ridley Thomas Drive.
And can I add that he already has a bridge somewhere?
Yeah, he got his name all
on Baldwin Vista.
Yeah, and then you also have CSC, the Community Service Centers, the Mark Ridley Thomas, which was named after him also.
You can't hate on that.
Are you referring to the building right across the street?
It's across the street, yeah.
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 Guys, there's no bad ideas, please.
I'm just gonna say, you can't hate on the man because he's done a lot. He has a large legacy. He deserves it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I was thinking maybe along the lines of someone that we have not recognized before from the community. It could be in the arts. It could be a musician or some, I don't know, but someone that when we hear the name, we were like, oh yeah, oh my God, yeah, they were, you know, they grew up here. And right now, off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank, but I know there are some.
Let me also add that in our plaza, we do intend to have some plaques and information like that about the history of the community. And we do want to represent some stuff. And so we you know, one of what you're saying, Ms. Anderson, I think is really beautiful, which is let's create an opportunity to educate related to a hero or a name or a community leader that people don't often talk about.
Right.
We talked about John Lewis and our reaction after we realized our mistake. We had the same reaction with Biddy Mason too, because she was in the running. We said, you know what, she deserves more than a side street. You know, she does, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Can I say, I bring this up periodically. I don't really get a response, but being from Chicago, I think about Rodney King, and I mean the riot was because of him. So what about Rodney King Way? Or
That's
Yeah,
tough, brother.
yeah. That's a little hard.
Yeah, it's a little awkward, my boy.
How about Karen Bass?
I'm Karen Bass.
I think these are all options. We can just write things down for now.
Yeah, let's write them down. Even MHD, Marquise Harris Dawson. You haven't mentioned his name.
That's very true.
Well, don't forget you also have over there the Rita Walters Learning Center. And she was a councilwoman. So I think, like you said, just throw it all out there.
Well,
Juanita Tate.
If we're going to say something about that too, then like also Latasha Harlins. I mean, I don't think we should do Rodney King either, personally, but I'm just saying if you're going to do that, let's have the other
brings
people.
back very bad memories from those of
yes.
grew up in the 80s in LA.
I am not disagreeing. Again,
Can we
I'm
also
not
do
disagreeing.
Juanita Tate?
Yep.
I'm just saying.
So we got Karen Bass, Juanita Tate, Latasha Harlins. Did I say that correctly?
Is it Latasha or?
I think so.
Harlins, yeah. There was one that I missed. I'm not sure if Leandro, you got it, but I believe there was one that was mentioned that I didn't quite get.
No, I think they just mentioned Rita Walters, but that's
Rita Walters,
the center that she's got down the street there.
Claudia Cardenas Plaza.
No, we already have Leandro in the running, so
Onwards.
So we also have some musicians that grew up in South LA as well. Some poets. We have a lot of artists that have grown up in South LA. So maybe thinking about some of them.
I like that.
What about other like feelings that you want? Like as we said before, like, this may be because since it is a side street. Like, what are some like emotions or other things that you want for like a street that would possibly go along with maybe whatever the final project name is and the street? Like, it's if we figure out that it's New Beginnings Plaza and then the street's called New Beginnings Lane or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea too.
Yeah, it's not bad if we figure out
the
total branding and we make that a subset.
Yeah.
The timing of when the street name has to be decided, is there is there a deadline by which that has to happen, and will we be able to make it align with the overall branding of the project?
Alexis, I think you have you know more about where we are with the process of Street A.
So I think I'll have to go back and reconfirm this. I think we were trying to do it sooner than later. It affects the B permit work, but I don't think it's something that we have to do in the next week. So actually, while we're on this call, I will reach out to our consultant and ask them.
My general feeling on the matter, Alexis, is let's have the community voice come up with this process. Even if we have to change something on the B permit later, we will. But more important, I really like what you're saying, Alexis, about let's almost go through this process of understanding the real name of this opportunity and see if we can't complement it with the street name. Yeah.
Can I ask you something? I don't know from a time frame. Is it possible to kill multiple birds with one stone so that we could engage our young people in doing research about leaders or icons that grew up in the area that would cause them to want to research and maybe submit the names?
Brilliant. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I think we're going to need some advice from the community on how we would go about and which students, which schools, and could we outreach to? But that concept is beautiful. Or a competition even that we could sponsor.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the schools that sit on the CAC?
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing.
And I also submit that before you consider Karen Bass, take into consideration that your project is in Maxine Waters' 43rd congressional district.
Well,
We suddenly lose all our funding. Like, what happened?
That's I think that's one reason I was trying to stick with the artists and stuff, so that because when you start dealing with politicians and stuff, that's a very touchy area.
And
Can I
Lord,
add someone
Lord
that I
knows
just-
some of them fall.
Hi, can I add someone that I just researched? Her name is Marguerite Lamotte, and she was an educator for over 80 years, and she
That's-
actually became
That's
a
Marguerite Lamont. Yeah.
Lamont. Okay, I
Yeah,
apologize.
she served on the LAUSD school board, but she was also the principal of Washington High School, so she was an educator.
And
And she was my mother's mentor for 10 years.
Wow.
Okay, there you go. So
What happened after 10 years?
So I just wanted to see if like maybe it's a school, it's like
That's
school
not
complex,
bad.
someone that has
That
to
might be Steph Curry from Deep. That might be a good. That's a good one.
She fought hard for education for the kids in South LA. So
Yes.
that area, if I'm not mistaken, was part of her district.
Yes, it was. It was. I had not thought about that.
It's Lamont, Lamonte, I think,
Yes.
and she
Yeah,
would
at the
be,
end.
and
Thank you.
She would be divisive because she wasn't considered necessarily progressive.
Yeah.
So it would be it might be controversial. But there is
Well, I don't
also
think- I don't
a
think there's
person
any
over the
one
school
person
district in
that-
that area right now that has very similar background.
Who you talking about, Mr. McKenna? Dr.
Yeah,
McKenna?
Yeah, Dr. McKenna.
Yeah. He was at Washington too.
Another family friend.
Yeah, I try to get away from those kind of public figures.
Right.
Yeah, I still feel like
all public figures are going to become divisive by some sects.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not in our like corner, but maybe in some other corner that we do want to be a part of this community. Then somehow, because we didn't engage them, or it's just above or below our radar on how it becomes divisive. I mean,
yeah.
But no less, I've never heard of the people who have just been mentioned, but just in like 2 minutes, it became, divisive, right? So,
You're right.
As I said earlier, it brings up feelings.
Right. Kind of like the South LA and South
Exactly.
Central you know.
Yeah.
I see a hand up with Maria. Maria, do you want to share your comment?
Yeah, hi, this is Maria with LA Metro.
Hi, Maria.
I've been listening. Hi, Leandro. Been listening, and I know that I want to say that there was a deadline. I know that we've been running a high school internship program every summer for the last 24 years, and so we're facilitating this internship virtually this year. But I would love to, I know we mentioned local schools and having this as a project, but if there's any way we can, bring in some elements of this project to, into the internship. At the end of the 7 weeks, they put together presentations, and they're working on infrastructure throughout, various communities in LA. So if there's any way we can incorporate that or use that as a platform to help get some ideas from youth. They are represented from various places in LA. So our community.
Love it.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
It's a great idea, Maria. We'll reach back out to learn more about that program. Clearly, Metro is such an important partner and anchor on this project that it would be great to involve the kids of the Metro as well.
Right. And another thing was working for the city, I headed up the African American Heritage Month celebration. We worked with Cultural Affairs Department for the city, and they have a list of all kinds of artists and individuals, African American, that you might be able to get a list from of people in the community. They're big on engaging community folk, artists, musicians and stuff, past and present. So they might actually have a list of some well-known artists or musicians or even just individuals in general that made a contribution. And we could actually consider. But Culture Affairs has a lot. They did the Watts Towers. With and I can't think of his name over there. Not Simon Rodia, but there's a building that was built, and it is a musician, and I can't think of his name on the tip of my tongue right now. But the building was named after him. It's right across from the museum, and but there's a list of.
That's a great idea too.
Yeah.
Really great idea. We will definitely speak with Cultural Affairs. We have a really good history with them.
Yeah.
And just as a reminder to the team, we absolutely would like local artists to supply sculpture and art in this project.
Yes.
Both in the plaza as well as murals for the project. We've already been outreached from one local muralist, Moises Ball.
Yeah.
Moses.
Moses. Okay, I call him Moises, but okay.
I know.
Moses.
Potato. And so the more local artists that we can help participate, the better.
And I will also add, beyond just the plaza and downstairs, like we're going to need to put artwork and things in the community rooms for the residents and in our lobbies. So there are other opportunities for photos or other types of art that we put in the project.
Culture Affairs every year for African American Heritage puts out a book of Black artists and the works, and it gives a description of the artists and everything. So there's a lot of artists that we can draw from. And it doesn't, and they do it for Latino Heritage Month. They do it for Asian Pacific Islander. So there's a lot of good, talented artists and individuals out there.
One of the dreams that we had always had, we had chatted in this in some of our calls previously, was using the plaza as a performing place for local jazz or local musicians or poetry or rhymes, but a chance for really local artists to express themselves with the community gathered around.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it was something similar along the lines of the Dunbar Hotel back in the day, where you had artists. That was the place where they stayed, where they performed, all of that.
See, now you're dreaming, and that's what we want. I like that.
And she's also talking about CRCD territory.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
where your offices are.
That's where we are.
Yes,
That's
yes.
our building.
It is. It is. It is. I remember back in the day. Yeah.
Sure.
Have you guys considered, what about Mr. Washington, Philip Washington?
Wow.
I
Certainly
mean,
this
he has a
project,
lot to do with this project
it
as
could
well.
not
He's
happen
also,
without him.
yeah, he's also like the first Black head of Metro, right?
I'm not sure about that, but I know that he and Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas worked hand in hand to kind of birth this, the school at least, the vision of that. So that would be great.
Right. So Washington Drive, no pun intended, but
And what about if there are, since this is a CRCD project and they work with a lot of the emancipated youth or whatever, is there an emancipated youth that has gained notoriety for, you know, making that transition and taking it to the next level of as a testament to the work that CRCD has done with young people and helping them to figure out their future, get on the right foot. Maybe someone that has, you know, I mean, they could be in their 40s, 50 or whatever, but they're out there, and maybe having them come back. I seem to remember back in the day that there was someone who came back and spoke. It was a grand opening or a ribbon cutting for one of the complexes.
Angela, are you on the call?
I'm here. Yes. I'll have
You
to
know,
give it some thought. I mean, I think yeah, it depends on which opening you're talking about. I know we try to have
Yeah, I
you know,
can't. It was,
youths
you know,
get
it's,
into openings.
yeah, I'm retired from the city now, but this was when I was working for Mayor Villaraigosa, and I oversaw South LA, and I would go to a lot of CRCD, and I was so impressed. Ah, God, I
Did
can't
you
think of his name.
just curious? Did you ever meet a young man named Jarrell Thomas?
Hey, that's one of mine. That's he. Yeah, I love Jarrell. Yeah, Jarrell. Yeah, I remember Jarrell and his brother and his mom, all of them over in the Dunbar.
Yep.
Jarrell is now the Chief Programs Officer
Jarrell knows. Yeah, he
at
knows me.
CRCD.
I'm just trying to think of. God. But that's what I'm thinking. You know, if we're trying to not get caught up in the popular names, but you know, think about other people who don't get the recognition but have put in the hard work.
Yeah, something
Also,
forward.
just to remind a reminder of a previous suggestion, Coalition Way. It's not a person, but that was one of the top contenders from the previous suggestions. So if that's
nice name. Yeah, that's good.
I'll be Bryant Lane. He gets a lot of love in the city.
Who's that, Lewis?
Kobe Bryant Lane.
We're just listing ideas for now, but we'll
I
come back.
like Coalition Lane. That's pretty good.
Just going on the same theme of the themes, some of the themes that were shared for in the previous discussion, but maybe something around hope, like a hope lane or a hope drive or something like that.
Yeah.
Our next board meeting, Angela, let Jarrell know I pitched his name.
I will. I'll let him know tomorrow, you know.
Some other themes that had come out in the previous conversation was concepts around unity square.
Can I add something?
Yes, Heidi.
Oh, sorry. I'm Suriel, Heidi's husband. I heard hope, but I was just thinking like in big terms. I'm like, I don't know if that would cause confusion because we already have a Hope Street in downtown.
There's a Hope Street. You're right.
So I don't know if like when you would put an address for a tenant there, people would get lost. I'm just thinking from someone who would be a visitor who wouldn't know the area and would end up in a different street.
Well, I'm sorry, if I remember correctly, weren't you born in Mexico City?
Yeah.
Yeah. So That's the problem.
Yeah, so my parents, they would get lost because they don't know English.
Arturo, who's on the line, was also born in
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't start hitting on us, please.
Chilangos.
Yep.
But is the street's not going to have any addresses, right? Because it's the placement of the street, or will it? Is there going to be?
No, it's going to have an address, Angela.
So some
Yeah.
other themes that had come up were Unity Square, people's movement, vision, commons, campus, just more words throwing out that kind of engender thought.
In the chat box, I think I think it might be Lisa, is offering Phoenix Way or Rebirth, Rising Up.
From the ashes. Right? Phoenix has come from the ashes.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. And, you know, we had an architecture by the name of Paul Williams.
Of course.
Paul R. Williams.
Paul Williams.
First African
And
American.
he did a lot in terms of Los Angeles, the airport, building homes for celebrities and everything. But yeah, he might be someone.
The historic YMCA.
Yes, exactly.
We had Primestar had the pleasure of working on his building at Western and Adams. We built we did the renovation of the old Golden State Mutual Life Insurance building that he designed. That was an amazing opportunity to see his work up close.
The other thing, he actually was born here in Los Angeles.
Yep.
So he's a product.
Yep.
Great. That's an awesome suggestion.
I really like that suggestion too.
Okay.
Time check, Angela. 7:53.
Yeah, it's almost 6 o'clock.
Yes, indeed. I want to do a quick check for Claudia, and who's facilitating this discussion. I want to give you an opportunity to close us out before we share any announcements.
So, I mean, thank you very much for all of your great suggestions and for this conversation. As stated in the beginning and throughout, this is a conversation with the community. The name of the project, the branding, the logo, it's all going to be done in coordination with the community. So if you have additional thoughts, additional ideas after this meeting, feel free to reach out. We're here to listen and to facilitate. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Claudia. So to close us out, we have a few announcements. I think Lewis is going to be sharing kind of when the next workshops are going to be, and so I'll turn it over to Lewis for announcements.
Next workshop is Wednesday, February 24th at 6 p.m. Sign up on the website to attend the future workshops and to receive updates about the projects. And the website is www.vmtpp.com. I'll put that in the chat box.
And if we may give you some homework, can you please bring a friend for the next one? A neighbor, family, anybody? Just get some more people to come out and join the efforts. That would be great.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Lewis. Okay, well, we're at 7:55. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time this evening. And we hope to see you in February. Take care.
I think everyone. Good night.
That's
Bye.
great.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Dance party. Thank you, Leandro.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.